Ready for more stories? Welcome to Reminiscing, our Highline history, a radio show presenting the memories of our community in the Highline area. Listen to a new episode every week, Monday and Tuesday, with your host, Roger Price, at 106.5 LP FM, South King County.
Good afternoon. I'm Roger Price, and I'm a volunteer here at the Highline Heritage Museum. And this afternoon, I have Greg Hope that I'm going to interview, and he's going to give us a little background on his growing up in Gregory Heights, Three Tree Point area. He went to the schools in Highline, so I'm going to turn it over to Greg. And Greg, you can maybe give us a little beginning of when you started goofing off and beering or whatever.
I'll just tell my story as I remember it off the cuff here. Well, I personally had a very good childhood, privileged, and not in the sense of wealth or anything, but in the sense of being able to be a kid. You know, I think both my parents were affected by the Depression, and I believe they felt robbed of their childhood in some ways. So they were determined to let me have a certain sort of, growing up that was full of sports and just hanging out and doing stuff in the woods and down at Three Tree Point. I remember long days of nothing much to do, and we would go fishing down at Three Tree Point and chop up bullheads and try to catch other fish. Mostly a failure, but it was all part of growing up around here. We'd walk through people's yards and on our way to go places, and there was never any shooing us away or anything like that. I remember going to Gregory Heights Elementary and really liking the whole thing. Sylvester was a bit of a transition, with people coming of age, so to speak, and new kids from everywhere. And I was probably a little bit more diffident than other kids, so it took me a little bit of time to make friends, but it was also great.
I bet so. When you transitioned from Gregory Heights to Sylvester, you had to take the bus.
No, I there was a bus, as I recall. Buses were more of my going to high school. I mean, this is a true story. It's maybe hard to believe, but when I was in 8th grade, I took a typing class, which did me extremely well in post-secondary education because I could, type. But you had to bring your own typewriter. And whatever, we came up with this Underwood typewriter that weighed like 20 pounds. And I do remember hauling that home from school to do various projects and just tromping up the shortcuts through the woods with this hard. I don't think I could do it now, but that's a strange memory, but also something kind of fond.
Yes, well, I think that's probably, and now you lived up kind of on the bluff
above Three Tree Point, and Sylvester Road. As I was going on, we had I think a great childhood with a lot of mom cleaning the house and shooing you out on most of the whole day Saturday, and then unsupervised playing and fooling around in the woods or in baseball diamonds, and there were just enough kids around so that you could have a baseball game anytime you wanted. And I mean, it was I look on kids since, and they haven't had that same kind of experience.
Oh, yeah.
My parents were not involved in hauling me around to various activities. I found out about sports teams to be involved with simply through the network of other kids when to show up for, even when you're 13, 14, 15, where you go for summertime, baseball. We knew, our parents didn't know and tell us about it. We just kind of figured it out. And I don't know, that was
So
remember, it's a good life.
you lived pretty close to the pool, Gregory Heights pool.
Yeah,
then,
I had friends that were swimmers, but I was not. But I do remember the excitement for during swim meet times at the Gregory Heights pool and down at the Cove pool too. So
yeah. Well, and then after junior high, you went on to Highline.
I did go to Highline, and I played baseball there for sophomore and junior year, and then left to earn a little money before going off to the University of Washington. And it was a good thing I did. But even in those times, life was pretty easy in a transition from, high school to college, in the sense of, financially, because I could, make enough money during the summer working at Pay and Save
Okay, you worked at Pay and
to
Save.
really pay for all the dorm and that kind of thing for a whole year at a freshman at the UW. And I don't know.
Yeah, so you kind of so you had a sister that was right behind
Yeah, my
you.
sister Kathy was right behind me. She lives in Iowa now, so she's gone from the area more than I have. I've always, except for a stint in Thailand where I worked as in a refugee camps for a while, lived in and around Seattle
Oh, okay.
all my life.
So your college now, you were involved in ministry or exactly?
I'm no, I'm not. I work for the Episcopal Church, but I'm not the pastor or an ordained minister or anything like that. Um, and I started that shortly after graduation from college, working with refugees and immigrants, and so I direct their refugee program.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's changed over years, but in a way, it's part of the Highline story too, because you can see the changes and that have come to the area through immigration, and that's in part because the arrival of refugees, and I've been a part of that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, well, that's great to do that kind of work. Sure. It's very fulfilling, I
Yeah,
bet too.
yeah.
But yeah, so you moved after college, you went out and you moved out of the area, I believe now, though, haven't you? Or
Well, yeah, I live in Beacon Hill down in Seattle, so I'm not,
okay.
I'm 10 minutes away. But yeah, after college, I mostly lived in and around Seattle. Lived in the North End a while, lived in the South End for the
Okay.
last 25 years. Mhm.
And I know we talked about you had a class reunion here recently
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
down at the Normandy Park.
Normandy Park Cove. It's one of those things that you maybe sometimes think, oh, these are people that you haven't seen 25 years. How interesting can that be? But that you go and you're just taken away. I had a good time at every one of these reunions I've
Yeah,
gone
they're a
to,
lot of fun.
and just to meet people, and I was totally absorbed in saying hello and just thinking about people I might not even been able to talk to, just seeing them across the room and hoping you could talk to them. But the whole 4 hours or whatever of the reunion went by in a flash, and
Yeah,
walk
actually,
away with nothing but good feelings about the whole thing.
there's not enough time to get around to everybody that you'd like to
Yeah,
talk to.
yeah.
But
Or recognizing everybody at this point.
yeah, that's
Thank
another.
God for name tags.
Exactly. Yeah, glad you brought that up because sometimes you have to look at the name tag Now oh yeah, Steve, I remember you
Yeah, it
or
is.
whoever.
And sometimes you remember stuff and people correct your memories that have built up over the years, or some of those false memories, or you're reminded of some sixth grade teacher that you had that you've forgotten even existed. And it just is a is a I don't know, just a great thing to, fill out sum up your past in a way.
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And to think of, Gregory Heights grade school and all the kids that have gone through there over the years, and then they rebuilt it here, I think around 20 years ago
Mhm.
now.
Yeah.
It's a pretty nice school, but I mean it worked well before too. So
Boy, well, a guy like me remembers every alleyway and the places where you're bouncing a ball during recess, and the kindergarten next door I also went to. But these are one of the things that is sort of correct. I always remember that there occasionally had steamed clams for lunchtime there. And my friends these days from the East Coast or the Midwest can hardly believe that. And I've told them this story because it's so vivid in my memory. But is that a false memory? I don't know. So I discussed that with people at the reunion, and they couldn't remember anything like that. So you sort of wonder what you
ah,
might be thinking, or what you conflated and put together.
well, who knows?
Who
Yeah.
knows? But I do remember that kind of stuff, and certain people bringing giant tree branches for show and
Oh,
tell, and
sure.
just all kinds of weird,
That
interesting
reminds me
things.
of times that I
Yeah.
remember the school lunches. I didn't buy the school lunch that often, but whenever they had sweepstakes, I loved sweepstakes. They were
Yeah, yeah.
they were
Or
kind of like a hamburger.
right, right, right. I remember that too, with tomatoes and stuff,
And
food with
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
little garlic on there. It was very tasty.
and chicken a la king and fish sticks on Friday.
Oh, yeah, there you go. That's right. They had that. And then you mentioned uh, a show and tell. I remember I went to Gregory Heights the first 2 years of grade school, and then they built Lakeview, and I went there. But in the second grade, I know we had a show and tell one day, and I brought a frog to class, and
Oh, good
uh,
for you.
yeah, but the teacher, I think it was her name was Mrs. Rigney, I believe. But
Mhm.
anyway, she would not let me go home unless I promised to set that frog free. So here I probably took me weeks to find that frog in the woods, but so I finally had to take it out in the madrona trees by the school and let the frog go.
Yeah,
So.
very Buddhist attitude there.
But yeah, that was a lot of good times, even at Gregory Heights.
Yeah, I
So,
I I agree.
and you probably rode your bicycle. I don't know.
Everybody had my 3-speed bike. And well, before all kinds of bikes.
Uh-huh.
My parents did take care of me with bikes, and rode everywhere. Sometimes I wonder if there was no such thing as helmets. There,
No.
there were big cars everywhere, and in no instruction on how to avoid them, and then, things like that. You wonder how you made it, and it was a little dangerous. Now, I think about it. Riding down to the stores in Seahurst to get your candy bar and stuff.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
And
down by
there's still a place there near the S curve on the way down there where we all just stop and look into the gully there, and that there's still a dip in the hill
oh
where,
yes, I
if
know
I
where you're
drive
talking
by,
about. Uh-huh.
I said always
Off
remember
21st there.
all of us little
Hmm.
scrubby munchkins, going down to get our chocolate bars
You
or
probably
whatever.
went to Barney's or whatever that grocery store was there in Seahurst,
Yeah,
or
well,
Kirk's Pharmacy was there too also.
yes, I went to all of them. There was a whatnot store too that might be slightly infamous in later life,
And
but
Dick Rogers had the Chevron gas
yeah, yeah,
station
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, that was the
Well, I remember when I was 12, I was on a baseball team that practiced at Lake Burien, and Al Imhoff, and we did very
oh,
well.
you were on Al Emhoff
I was
team.
on an
Mhm.
Al Imhoff team and got on that team only because the a construction guy, a guy that was working on the house, my parents' house, our house, doing some remodeling work. You noticed that all the neighborhood kids were playing catch most of the morning. Just we were just playing baseball in the backyard on our own initiative, all day long. And I just know he did some sort of recommendation, and you pulled some strings. I got on this good team. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I remember that Moth team. They were good.
Yeah, yeah.
Erie Bankers were another good, strong team.
Yeah.
But
It
yeah,
was the first time I experienced. I remember certain play times when the moms were all driving you to the game. There'd be certain as you approach the field, you'd start to have butterflies. And I never had butterflies before, so it was like 12 years old. It's the first time I recall having that feeling, and didn't.
little anxiousness
Little
or
anxious.
something.
Here comes this thing, and everybody's watching, and you hadn't thought of it at all before until you're just driving up. And
Yeah,
that's
the pressure was on.
the pressure was on. Got to perform or whatever.
Absolutely.
And I just remember those things.
Oh, of course,
Mm.
sure. Yeah, that was good. It's good fun times. And then yeah, I know you probably even ventured down to the Three Point store
Yeah.
sometime in your
Oh,
youth.
very much. That was part of the ritual of going fishing. You go fishing earlier than the store open, and then get something to eat on the way back up the hill.
Oh, sure. Yeah, and it was a long way up that hill to the top up there
Yeah.
to 21st and then 19th and 170th. Sure,
Mhm.
that was at the very top there.
Yeah,
So,
but it was a little bit easier because you cut through all these people's yards, and it's the little bit. I don't think that would be permissible today. But maybe I'm wrong.
probably
Maybe
not
there's
though.
kids doing that same thing. But
Somebody might see that and start hollering or
yeah,
something,
we
or
got none of that.
call the police and say, "Hey, there's a suspicious person in there." But yeah, like you say, it was fine back in
The
those
the
days.
only trouble was dogs that weren't on a leash. So you learned where the dogs were, so you avoid the mean ones.
Yeah,
I think every kid knew what houses to walk by or skirt or whatever.
and what yard to stay out of. Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, that was. But yeah, nowadays they're all leashed and
Yeah, that's
pretty well
true.
behaved, so that makes a difference. But yeah, so you get, and then you say you worked at the Pay and Save.
In high school, during this, I think about mid-year and or about the time that baseball was coming on, because I quit the team and I went as a senior and just went to work.
Oh, uh-huh.
Not full time. I mean, it was a part-time job.
Yeah, they were kind of hooked up with Ernst
I think
Hardware
they're all, Ernst
and Lamont's
and
and
Lamont's. That's correct. All
yeah,
gone now or
yeah,
absorbed in somebody.
yeah, they sure were. Yeah, because I think Lamont's was Bell's Iberian back in the day too.
That's true. I
And
remember Bells of Burien
uh,
buying, Christmas presents and stuff there.
yeah, that's right. So yeah, well, you had a pretty good you had a good growing up
Yeah,
time
I think
here.
it was a decent place to grow up,
Uh-huh.
and certainly, like I said earlier, privileged existence compared to what you've learned about life.
And you still keep in
Later.
touch with classmates
And
from
not as many as I'd like, of course. The life seems to go that way, but no animosities or anything. That's why I think I like the high school reunions. I
Oh,
think
uh-huh.
pretty well.
Sure, yeah. And then just you came into the museum one day and you talked to some of the volunteers up front and so here we are. It's
Yeah.
great. I'm glad that was
Yeah, well, I sort of came into the knowing about the museums through one of your employees / volunteer, Nat Putavan, who's
Oh, sure. Yeah.
her mom and I work together, And so I've known her, and she's become associated and with it, and in a sense brought me in, and my wife and I are contributors, and we think the idea of it is great. We still have to do our first visit here, though. So
Oh, sure,
I think that's
absolutely.
probably coming up.
But yeah, Nat's involved in the museum for a number of years now, and she's
Yeah.
in charge of, I think, special events now or something like that. So
Yeah,
it's
that
great.
sounds like her way of doing things.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So it's a great deal. Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So anything else that maybe you let's see, what else could we discuss? Maybe well, we did high school, and did you take driver training at
I
Highline?
did. We did take driver's training. It was available. You actually had it in school with instruction and driving at both education and driving instruction. I think it made us better drivers than we would have otherwise been.
Uh-huh.
And these days, I wonder if, I don't want to sound like an old fogey because I can't say I was the best driver ever when I was 16 and probably deserved high insurance rates. But I think there's just drivers that don't have to go through all that. And so
Yeah.
there, you just see some of the maneuvers out there and wonder what's going on here.
I think I took
Yeah.
in my, it might have been my junior or I'm not sure, senior or sophomore year driver
Yeah.
training.
Mhm.
And we used to drive around up in the Chelsea Park area. And I know the one session was learning how to parallel park.
Oh, wasn't that the whole thing? Like you practice that. So
Uh-huh.
that was the hardest part of the driving test.
Yes,
doing
that
the
was.
parallel parking.
Yeah, once you made it through that, you thought, well, it's
Yeah, I can
downhill
do
from
it,
here.
and you got all the information, drive at 15 miles an hour that you'll never drive before and never drive again.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's
Oh, I know. Maybe possibly. Now you had some fairly good hills. I know 16th and 19th are both pretty steep. Do you ever do any sledding when we get
Oh,
some
we did
snow?
sledding all the time. Every
Oh,
time it snowed, we do sled and down 170th in the backyard. Another time where you think back, this is the way kids get eliminated early. But we managed to survive, and we sledded just mass numbers, which probably helped things because the cars that were struggling to get up the hill, we were all somehow aware of getting out of the way.
yeah. And either that or they decided I'll just park here and come back tomorrow when the snow's melted and get my car or something. Yeah. Because there were a lot of kids.
Plenty of sledding adventures.
Yeah. That was a
And
highlight
there
of the
was,
winter.
I remember one time, or maybe more than once, we got over to the steep and curvy road that goes down to the cove from Sylvester.
Yeah, what do they call that? Snake Hill or something like
that?
I forget
that
what
was
it
fun.
is.
That was fun to sled on.
Oh, I bet that's a long pull to come up from there.
Well, no
though.
one was coming up the hill.
Yeah, nobody comes there to go up that hill. No, long walk too. Coming back.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, that's great. I'm very glad that we had this opportunity, Greg, to do this, and
Yeah.
thanks a lot.
Well, and much appreciated. Glad I could contribute in some way to all your
Sure,
efforts.
that's great.